In today's video, I will guide you step by step on how to set up Ubuntu desktop on VMware Workstation Pro. So before we dive in, let me quickly explain a few terms for those who are new to virtualization. So first thing we need to understand here is that we will be setting up a virtual machine. Now what is a virtual machine? Now a virtual machine is basically a computer within your computer, which in other terms, we are able to run multiple operating systems on a single machine without needing separate hardware. Now, in order to install or to perform today's tutorial, we will be needing two things, an ISO file and the VMware Workstation Pro already installed on your machine. Now, what is an ISO file? An ISO file is basically a disk image that contains the installation file for an operating system. In this case, we'll be using the Ubuntu ISO file. And VMware Workstation Pro is basically a powerful virtualization software that lets you create and manage virtual machines easily. So, where can we get the ISO file in order to set up a virtual machine? So today we'll be basically downloading this ISO file from the official website of Ubuntu. So this link I will provide it in the chat box. So what you have to do here, you have to browse to this link, and then all you have to do is click on the download button, which will begin the download for the ISO file. Now since I have already downloaded this ISO file, I won't be downloading it again because the size of this file is around 6 GB, which will take quite some time. So I want you all to download this ISO file, and once you're done, we can go ahead. Now, once the ISO file is downloaded, then what you have to do next is open your VMware Workstation Pro. Now in this video, I will not be explaining how to set up VMware Workstation Pro because I have already done it in another video, for which I will provide the link in the description box. So once you have downloaded the ISO file, what we will do is we will click on File and we will click on Create a new virtual machine. Now here what we will do is we will, instead of typical, we will be using the custom installation steps. Okay, so what we'll do is click on Next. Here we also will click on Next, and in this step we have to basically select the ISO file which we have downloaded. Okay, so I will browse to the location where I have saved my ISO file. So here I will be selecting the Ubuntu ISO file. Then we'll click on Next, and then here we will give our machine a name. So let's call this machine Ubuntu, and similarly we'll give a username and password. And we will select the location where we want to store or save our machine. Okay, so here I have created a folder called VMs. Inside this folder, I will create another new folder specifically for Ubuntu. Now here is where all my files will be stored, basically where my virtual machine will be stored. So next thing I have to do is I have to select the number of processors. So you don't need to worry about this much because your CPU might be having enough processors if you're setting this up. And make sure you have enough RAM to run this virtual machine. It's recommended to at least have 16 GB of RAM if you're running multiple virtual machines on your system. Okay, so in this case I have 16 GB of RAM, and what I will do here is when I'm installing this machine, I will increase the RAM up to 8 GB. Later I can bring it down to 4 GB, which is sufficient enough to run this virtual machine. But just for the installation step, to make things faster, I will be increasing my RAM to 8 GB. Okay, keep the network settings as it is. Click on Next, Next. Okay, Next. And here we have to basically select how much space do we want to allocate for this virtual machine. Okay, now I would suggest that you go with the recommended settings for this if you're not doing something quite heavy or not installing storing much files on this virtual machine. Otherwise you can increase this, but don't worry, it won't take much space because the minimum size will only be occupied here, and this size will grow dynamically. But make sure you have enough space on your machine, at least 20 GB, or I mean more than 20 GB when you're installing this virtual machine. Okay, so we click on next, next, and make sure you have the preferred settings. Okay, here I have put the settings which I would like to use, and then we will click on finish. Once this is done, we can go ahead and start the virtual machine. This will take some time because it will now perform the installation of the files which are required since we are setting it up for the first time. Okay, now select your preferred language, click on next, next. Okay, and we will make sure you select install Ubuntu. Okay, okay, we will select areas and install Ubuntu, which will basically clear the space which we have allocated. So we will give the machine a name. Basically, we'll be creating a new user on this machine. So I can just give it the any user. So I will give it my name, and I'll give the password. Click on next, select your region, and then we will go ahead and install. We are done with the installation, and it takes around 20 minutes to half an hour depending on the speed of your internet to complete this. And once it is done, we can go ahead and restart this virtual machine. So as you can see, the machine has been restarted. We can log in. So that's it, we are done with the setup. You can go ahead and open the terminal, and that's it. We have completed setting up the Ubuntu desktop virtual machine on VMware Workstation Pro. So if any doubts or any questions, you can ask in the comment section of this video. That's all for today. Thank you and goodbye.